The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed in the podcast belong solely to the hosts and not the host's past, present, or future employers. Hello, everybody. Welcome back. It's Brian doing the intro here for Breaking Down Security this week, and I'll have one for next week as well. This week and next week, we interview J Goerlich, J.W. Goerlich on Twitter. This week's podcast, we had discussed with Jay and Amanda about RSA, because they had both spoke at RSA. Miss Berlin had a panel there about Zero Trust and had given a talk about Sysmon. And we kind of got into it about conferences just in general, in terms of, I have avoided RSA because, I don't know, I felt like it was too corporate, maybe, that people go to RSA not to see security talks, but to be vended products too. I imagine RSA in many cases to be a Comic-Con of sorts where there's a vast vendor pit, and it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we have, talks. I think I'm going to have to revise my statements on some of these things, and maybe try to go next year, even though from as you'll hear in the interview that we do with Wolf and Amanda, the hotel rooms are damned expensive. So, I could probably, it's in downtown San Francisco. So maybe I could get a nice hotel room in LA and drive up or something, every day. I don't know. I'm just being facetious. But yeah, I had heard, in the past that the hotel rooms were like $500 US a night. My friend actually, who had reached out to me saying he was there, his hotel room was $900 a night, $900 a night for I think a 4-day conference, which is an obscene amount of money for a conference. So, maybe there's Airbnbs or something in the area that might be cheaper. But yeah, I think I might actually want to go, because the feedback I got from Miss Berlin was that there's a lot of people there who are actually there to talk about security and be passionate about that. And it's not just, hey, here's a talk that's a thinly veiled vendor pitch. So might be something, and I shouldn't cast aspersions on things that are, unless I've experienced them firsthand. So we talk a little bit about RSA this week, and I hope you'll join us next week as well. Wolf and I and Amanda talk about training, and how we probably need to start looking differently at training, its effectiveness, the value add or non-value add that comes out of that. So yeah, I hope you'll join us for that. All right, I'm gonna go. Have a good one. Oh, okay. So that worked great. That was perfect. Thank you, everybody. Miss Berlin, if you need to, if you need to see what that Candygram.
Hold on.
Made it a whole minute into the show.
Candygram. Oh, hey everybody. I'm Brian. Hey everybody. Hey, it's Miss Berlin's clone right there.
Right?
Hey, what's up?
Doesn't he look cute in glasses?
I look cute in glasses too, I think. Maybe no, not so much. I've been compared to a young Tony Stark, but it is what it is. So I'm the only one who compares
James,
myself to Tony
everyone.
Stark.
Hey,
Hello.
James.
Hey James.
Hello.
Oh. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
He's in the still like somewhat squeaky, somewhat deep voice stage.
Yeah, I had squeaks for about 20 years, and then I finally got this voice, so it is what it is. So
voice for radio.
Yeah, I have face for radio too. So
are you gonna help us with any cybersecurity things? I don't know. What is your favorite cybersecurity tip? I don't work. Just say use two-factor authentication. No. Get out of here then.
Okay.
Analyze all your logs. Analyze logs stuff. He'll get there one day. So, hello everybody. I'm Brian. Miss Berlin, of course, is with us. J Wolf Goerlich is with us as well today, this week, for breaking down broadcast, breaking down security. I'd like to thank all of our followers and listeners for coming on with us tonight. Also, before we get started, I'd like to thank Pokaloo, Nick, Adam, Zero, Jinzo 20, Mix Panic, and of course beforehand Digital Warhead, of course, for his cheers and bits, and Clam Security for their bits before. But just want to thank everybody for following and supporting the broadcast here with your support, your word of mouth advertising, and everything. So, been a fun couple weeks. Miss Berlin hasn't been here for a little while because of RSA and travel and what have you. And I don't think we've ever had Jay on the show. Jay, you've never been on our show?
I don't think so. Maybe.
Okay.
But not that I can recall. At least not since the Twitch switch. So.
Yeah, definitely not since Twitch. So, thank you so much for taking the time and effort. You're muted, Ms. Berlin.
It was probably really funny too.
It was hilarious. I said I've barely been on it since the Twitch switch.
Oh, that's okay. You're busy. You're doing a lot of stuff with like Red Siege, and you're doing some tabletop exercises with folks. So we appreciate when you can take the time to join us here. I do a lot more Twitch streaming than other folks, obviously, but it's I'm doing Hack the Box and things like that. So it's some fun times, but. Some announcements. We're going to be talking with Jay and Amanda about the RSA conference that just happened a couple weeks ago. It became, I don't know, a super spreader event in some cases, unfortunately. But it was well received. I think there was a lot of good talks that happened over there.
If we go by the numbers, 50% of the people on this call.
Jesus. Wait. 50% of 3 is like 2.2.
50% of the people that went to RSA.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. All right, cool. Yeah.
Although I have a cough. I have a cough, but I definitely don't have COVID.
Okay.
So far.
Okay. How do you know?
I did a regular at-home test and a PCR test, and it's my only symptom. So I feel like it's either 1, psychosomatic, or 2, maybe allergies.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Digital Warheads.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
No. I was just saying. Digital Warhead said for his Father's Day, his wife bought him the Defensive Security Handbook. So you've got some more royalty checks coming through in the mail there for like 20, 30 cents.
$3 whole.
Oh my god. So Jay, you said what was the atmosphere like? This was like the first RSA after the pandemic in person?
Yeah. So feel free to call me Wolfgang or Wolf, whichever is
okay.
easier for you.
Okay.
We don't need to go by the first letter, although we can. It's like J and Q. I mean, it sounds very, Mystery Men or
A.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like I could be
A and J
and B and J.
Yeah, A and B and J. Nice. I'm Berber. I'm actually alliterative twice, so it is what it is.
Love it. No, it was nice to be back in person. The last time I was at RSA, I went to the Scotch and cigar party. So we're, having some scotch, having a cigar. Great night, and I was talking to one of all of our friends, Aaron Lintile, and he's like, this is going to end. This is, he was in one of his rants. I'm like, Aaron, he said, listen, this is a rare magical moment in time. You got a good scotch, you got a good cigar. We're with friends. We're in San Francisco. It's February. It's like, one day this is all going to end. And he turned to me and he said, Wolf, I'll tell you right now, it already has. And that was the last conference. That was like the last conversation at the last conference I had. And every time I see him, I'm like, this is your fault. You called this, and it's your fault.
It's a conspiracy.
Yes.
Yeah.
I blame Aaron.
Yep. Aaron, RSA, February 2020, and then that was pretty much it. There was lockdown right after. And as a matter of fact, there was a lot of folks who were like, maybe we shouldn't have RSA 2020 because of what was going on there. But yeah. Cool. All right. Jay, did you speak at RSA as well?
I did, B.
Jay.
I spoke. I did 2 talks. I talked on security design and the importance of really human-centric design principles and thinking about how people interact with the system, not only the adversaries but also the people we want to protect. Talked about that, and coincidentally enough, and ironically enough, considering I came down with COVID, talked about all the things we could learn about risk management from what happened in 2020 in a talk called Hindsight is 2020. So pulled out like all the different ways that people were responding to the pandemic, applied them to the NIST RMF, and then put on my mask and flew home and promptly tested positive. So great examples of flawed risk management, I suppose.
I was going to say, so should I just not follow anything you talked about?
I mean, it's worked for you not to so far, so just keep going.
Well, so one of the things I told my wife about the RSA being kind of somewhat of a spreader event was, and she raised the questions like, did you get it at RSA or did you get it on the plane rides to or from? Right. Because RSA may have been a fairly safe event, but yeah,
like randomly in San Francisco.
Right.
Well, so here's the thing. RSA was wrapped up 7 weeks of straight travel for me. The last 3 weeks were out of a suitcase and I never went back. And I was in San Francisco for several days before RSA. So I would say that of all the times on an airplane, if that was the one to get me, that would be a little bit odd. I mean, the numbers don't seem to work out.
Nope, that makes sense. That makes sense. Hey, Super Lolly, welcome. So Super Lolly lives on the other side of the world, so it's like Monday morning for him. So, So you were talking about risk management. Maybe give people a synopsis. Were these talks recorded? Can they see these talks online, or is are they available?
So they were recorded. If you have a RSA badge or ticket, you can log in and see them. I don't know if they've been generally released yet, and I'm not sure RSA's approach to that. Okay. But so that's the answer to 1. What was your answer to 2? I'm sorry, it's late at night for me.
No, it's okay.
What was your other question?
Yeah, I was just asking if they were available. So if it may take a couple weeks is what it sounds like. I don't have an RSA badge, so I'm not cool like that. I'll have to wait and check those out. But
Are you going to give the talks that you gave at RSA anywhere else?
I am going to probably give different versions of those. Yes, because so in both of the topics, the design one, I've given various versions of for a year or 2 now. I've been on this mission to explore security design since keynoting Circle CityCon in 2019. So, I mean, I've covered different aspects of it. This one was new aspects with affordances and metrics. But so, yes. And on the risk management side, absolutely, people have it. What's just risk management in general is so frustrating to me because we started off talking tech, right? I think we all remember we got in this field and we're like, we're sit down with the executives. They should care about security. Let me tell you about my domain controllers and my patch levels. And everyone just like, I remember the CFO going, what's a domain controller? And so being the savvy social engineer hackers we are, we listened and they're like, oh, they keep talking about business risk. We should do risk. And we got into risk management and promptly made it just as technical and as opaque as tech and say, oh, by the way, here's my Monte Carlo simulation and I have determined data. And people just, so I do think there is an awful lot to the psychology of people, how they make decisions, how they accept risk or negotiate risk, right? How they view things. There's an awful lot to that that just is overlooked when someone's like, oh yeah, follow the NIST RMF, or ISO has this ISMS process that you can follow for risk management. Like, yeah, that sounds great, but people don't ever work that way ever in just about any domain. But maybe they will for cyber, we keep thinking, but no. So yes, I would certainly be covering these areas in future events.
Okay. And Miss Berlin, you started off Monday morning like most everybody, in the world. They started on a panel of Kubernetes. No, I'm sorry, Zero Trust is the other thing that everybody doesn't really understand. That
The other thing that I also don't know about.
Yeah, well, that's okay. I don't either. That's why we had Jay Beal on Monday, because I was like, I have had several people on talking about Kubernetes, and I still don't understand why I would want to use it not in my own office. So, how did the Zero Trust panel go?
It was packed.
Really?
Nice.
Like 8:30 on a Monday morning. It was packed.
Interesting.
I was floored at the amount of people that were in there to listen to a panel about Zero Trust at 8:30 in the morning on a Monday.
Okay. And because it's a panel, 8:30 on a Monday morning, I'm sure all of the problems of Zero Trust were solved.
Oh, we fixed everything.
Everything is fixed. Okay,
Yes.
good. Oh, good.
Yep. All of us are out of jobs.
Damn it.
I apologize.
That's okay. I'm almost retired anyway, so it's all right. It's fine. Another 25 years and I'll be good.
It honestly went really, really well. It was a panel of 5 of us.
Mm-hmm.
Me being the only person that's not written a Zero Trust book. Right?
There's still time.
No, but funny thing, after you get put on a panel about Zero Trust at RSA, imagine the book offers that come in. They're like, please write a book about Zero Trust. I'm like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, they barely got me on a panel. I was proud to represent the skeptical portion of people that talk about Zero Trust sometimes. My favorite question from the moderator. So Jason Garbus, he actually wrote one of the books on Zero Trust, and I think we've had him on the podcast. Was, are we asking too much of people when we say you should implement Zero Trust? And my answer was yes. Because I think that if you look at the world in total, right? Like all of the people that have a network to be designed or a network to be secured, what percentage of those people do you think can even come close to starting down a Zero Trust path? And it's a very small percentage. Like, there are a huge amount of like SMBs that have one person that don't even know what their assets are. They don't know what applications are on their network. They don't know, like, they are just like putting out fires left and right, trying to do like whatever's right and make sure that they're not the next like organization on the news. You can't go to that person and be like, it's like somebody in the 1% being like, why can't everybody bring themselves out of poverty? This is crap. Like, it's the same viewpoint. Like, you cannot just expect people with that much tech debt and no resources to just be like, oh, I'm going to go down the Zero Trust path. So that was my.
It's funny you say that, Amanda. I'm working on a Zero Trust field guide right now. And so we did this meta-analysis, and there's like 5,000 people who are like, oh yeah, here's where we're at with Zero Trust, all this sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. I don't do data scientists. I just look at the facts. But it's like, what do people who have mature Zero Trust programs look like? They've got buy-in from their executive team. They've got support from their peers. They've got plenty of staff. They've got plenty of budget. I'm like, that's a cheat code. Like, if you have all that.
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
There's nothing that the security program probably isn't doing at that point, right? I mean, well, I've got plenty of staff. Well, yeah.
That's a mature security program.
Right. And
Yeah.
there's a reason Google can make that work, and they were the lead people on that. Yeah, and
Hmm.
Microsoft and all these other folks. The it just seems like it's so nebulous as to what people really want from zero trust. Is it the authentication portion? Is it defense or offensive defensive capabilities? What is it that they are expecting to get out of zero trust when they decide they want to implement it? Other than the fact that they can say, well, we have zero trust. Zero trust in what is, and that's one thing that I've always kind of really wondered about in terms of what's the ultimate goal for zero trust. Is it just to get rid of infrastructure like firewalls and VPNs? Is it to rely less on having IT, doing things, and everything's going to be, based in the cloud, and you're just going to have to just drop out a bunch of YubiKey tokens. I don't, and like you said, there's tech debt. So it's hard to overcome that tech debt to be able to put in new stuff that's going to introduce additional tech debt. And where does that fit in budget? And, I guess that's why they have consultancies that, like for zero trust implementations. And they just, I would imagine the best thing to do would be to start from scratch, build the zero trust infrastructure, and then put all your old shit into it, and then figure out what you can consolidate and get rid of. But I don't know. I'm not a zero trust consultant, so I wouldn't know what the best way is to implement that shit in the first place.
Me neither. I'm not a zero trust consultant, but based off, so like we had Chase Cunningham on there, and he does it all the time, right? We
No,
had,
Chase.
yeah, we had, gosh, Jerry. Oh, what's Jerry's last name? It's been a long couple weeks. But we had a couple really good people that do that all the time, either from a risk-based perspective or just like pure zero trust. And they actually recommended doing a portion. So like make these business critical servers or these functions zero trust first. And like it's kind of like a walk before you crawl thing. It's kind of like
Right.
how do you implement two-factor auth or whatever, right? Like you just don't do like turn it on everywhere. You have to MFA to everything you ever auth to. Like that's crazy. Uh, but doing it like at a kind of strategic piece by piece thing as opposed to we need to be zero trust by the end of the year, 100%. Like uh, most people I don't think will ever get to 100% unless you're starting a company from scratch maybe. But taking like old antiquated stuff that you may not even necessarily need zero trust depending on who you're talking to from a risk perspective, like do the important stuff first and then like
Right.
kind of go down that journey of trying to get there. But you have to really plan that stuff out and not
Right.
just be like we're going to be zero trust and that's our that's a very black and white view of how to do it, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a weird. Go ahead. Go ahead, Wolf.
I was going to say I've been doing zero trust strategy and planning workshops for probably 3 years now, 3 years now,
Okay.
monthly. And yeah, everything you're saying, Amanda, is spot on, right? Take an incremental approach, fight your battles, know where it makes sense. A lot of these vendors and a lot of the white papers are like, oh, you will never succeed until you have 100%. Well, no security works that way. No, none,
Exactly.
none. No control you've ever put
Exactly.
in place has been 100%.
Right. Right. So Digital War had asked the question. I recently read an article on SecJuice. It said the Fed government switching to a zero trust model, and it's only a matter of time before businesses and corps follow suit.
Yeah.
Thoughts? And if so, what would a business with zero trust look like?
So, yes, that's true. The executive order came out and then said everyone needs a plan. CISA has replied, and CISA has a maturity model. So actually, if you download from their website, you can get the CISA maturity model. I think it's in draft 1 right now, and it builds on NIST 800-207, which was finalized in 2020. So we have a common architecture. We have a maturity model people can follow. But for most businesses, frankly, it's going to be risk-based authentication with multi-factor. It's going to be network access control. I mean, it's going to be some of these fundamental controls we've talked about for a long time, just implemented in a way that's doing policy enforcement on an identity.
Right.
It's like it was really interesting. So when I got asked to be on the panel, I'm like, all right, like I've heard all of like the snake oil stuff around zero trust. Like I really want to know like currently what do people think? And so I tweeted out like, what's the first thing that you think about when someone says zero trust? And almost everybody, other than like some really, really funny responses, were it is least privilege access with a marketing budget. Right. And which is sad because it's more than that. Like if you look
Right.
into it, it's more than just least privilege as we know it from like a normal like networking and access perspective. It's if you take least privilege access with multi-factor and give it context,
Right.
right? Like you are doing some kind of context and automation around that authentication and access. Like that's supposed to be what zero trust is. It's not somebody getting a piece of like getting an email or getting a piece of paper on their desk being like, "Oh, now I have to create this user and add them to these groups and this person says that they have that access and they're done for forever."
Yep.
Right? That's like the normal model that a lot of people have.
Yeah.
And that's not zero trust. That's least privilege access, depending on how you have set it up technically. But like zero trust is more than that. And sure, it has a marketing budget because there were like 30 to 40 talks that had the word zero trust in it at RSA, which I was I was just like amazed at. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Like I feel like people don't take it seriously because of all of the fluff around it.
Right. It's nebulous, right? I mean, there's so many different ways that people have suggested what zero trust is. I mean, if your management was to come in and go, "Hey, let's implement zero trust," you could give them something and they're like, "No, no, no, I don't want that. I want this." Well, you didn't say you wanted this type of zero trust. It's almost like there's different flavors depending on what they want of it. FS Montenegro, thank you, longtime friend of the show, as a matter of fact. He said context, but also continuous verification, in my honest opinion. And Digital Warhead said, while zero trust will increase security, could it potentially decrease productivity and cost and time of doing business? I don't know. I mean, thoughts from Wolf, Amanda?
Not if you do it right. So the thing is, to Amanda's point, we've been talking about trust boundaries for a long time. And oftentimes, for the sake of productivity, we've created very large trust boundaries, right? One network segment. I've segmented my network. Says every company ever until they send in the pen tested ROIS segment means I've got different VLANs and I'm routing any anyways.
Right.
So effectively, what we're talking about with zero trust is a very tight scoped trust boundary. Exactly what Fernando was saying, something continuous, something well defined. Now, this gets back to what I was talking about in my RSA talk, which is security design. If you first spend time with your business folks, whoever you're doing with this, your privileged admins, your DevOps team, your people in finance, whoever you're doing this with, your remote users, if you first spend time with them, you plot out what their workflow looks like, and you make sure that 99% of the time that they're following that workflow, we're getting out of the way because they're on a machine that we recognize, authenticating in a way we recognize. Why even ask again? You've already authenticated, save a token. Coming from a location, accessing apps, behaving in a behavior that indicates that I can trust you. Let's get the hell out of the way. Let's get the hell out of the way. Now, I say that, and anyone who was paying attention to what Amanda said in the beginning will automatically say, Wolf, that sounds great. When am I going to have time to sit down with my user population and do good security design when I'm trying to patch log4j and someone just told me that they provisioned a whole bunch of AWS servers and oh my God, no one told me about that. I thought we were in Azure.
Right. Or, we're both in AWS and Azure and we're only, half-assing it in either one of those and we're not, yeah. I mean, I've heard
There's a Ron Swanson security quote there. Yes.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, multi-cloud things are now a big deal. We've had several discussions on in our Slack and on Discord about, yeah, we're in AWS, we're in Azure, and we're in GCP because we want failover or whatever. And I'm like, why? There's, they're all global networks. Just pick a different availability zone or whatever the hell Azure calls them or whatever GCP calls them, and go that way. You're adding needless complexity to these things, and you're not going to be able to, be as agile as you want to be, thinking, that you can just drop over to different clouds. But that was it for Breaking Down Security this week. You can join Wolf online on Twitter at J Goerlich, JW Goerlich, JWGOERLICH. And Miss Berlin is Info Sister, INFOSYSTIR. The podcast, the broadcast, the Twitch broadcast is at Breaksec, BRAKESEC. You can follow me at Brian Break, BRYANBRAKE, and Mr. Betcher, of course, the lead developer of log-md.com. You can find him at Betcherpwned, BOETTCHERPWNED. I'd like to thank all of our Twitch subscribers, our Patreon supporters, for their generous tip jar support, if you will. And I would also like to remind people that we don't put the full interviews on here, on our audio podcast, to give people incentive to maybe potentially do Patreon support or to do a Twitch subscription, which Twitch subscriptions are $5 a month. If you have an Amazon Prime account, they are free. So if you log in to Twitch and you subscribe with your Prime account, you give us a free subscription. We get money for that. You don't pay anything because it's a benefit of your Amazon Prime account. So I mean, there's other ways you can support us as well. Word of mouth advertising. Tell people about the podcast and the broadcast. Maybe Twitch is not your bag of rocks or whatever other person, good thing that you put in bags. Tell them about our podcast and our broadcast. And, hopefully, if you cannot give or are unable to give or unwilling to give, maybe your friends will open their pocketbooks, if you will. And that money goes to things like scholarship opportunities for people in underserved groups. We try to do the InfoSec campout with as few sponsors as possible because we are, I wouldn't say anti-RSA, but we are definitely anti, getting sponsor money to drive, the thought processes or potential conflicts there. So, and it also goes just to, pay for time and effort of hosting, Zoom, domain registration, whatever. So, and you get other benefits like, access to our Slacks and Discord. If you want to join us on our Discord, you can join us at discord.gg/breaksec, and you go in and you click OK to accept the code of conduct, and you can join us and talk about all kinds of things. And you can DM us on our Twitch and gain access to a Slack instance as well. So I think that's it. Thank you all for joining us. This is Breaking Down Security. I'm Brian Brake, and I want to remind everybody to be safe, take care of yourselves, and because as we're fond of saying here, you're the only you have. I want to talk to you again soon.